Hello everyone, hope you're doing well. I thought we would talk about the next update, since that is the big news right now. We're in update season, which basically means that there is a ton of stuff going on. We just had the pre-orders for some of the battleships come out, and I'm sure there'll be some other pre-orders when the other dev blogs start rolling in next week. People have been asking me when the teaser's going to be. Well, usually it's either going to be next Thursday or the Thursday after. Would be very surprising if it's on a different day, but who knows? There has been some which have moved about. When will the dev server be? Probably after the teaser. That's usually what happens as well, so I don't see why that would change either. But in this video, I wanted to talk about the AA systems, since basically everything from the league lists has been kind of shown to be true so far, which has been released. I wanted to kind of go through all of the AAs and my general thoughts in terms of will they actually fix the top tier issues that we see going forward with War Thunder. Now, if you have not been looking at the news, there is a bunch of AA systems which have already been announced. The Elder 98 and then also the CSSA 5. Both of these are dev-blogged and they were also teased when it comes to War Thunder. In the leaks, there's a bunch of other AAs which are turning up. You have the Iris TSLM with Germany. You have other vehicles such as the 3.5-ton truck SAM-1 for Japan, and then also you have the Spider AIO, or all-in-one for Israel. So these are three very powerful AA systems which have a pretty decent range, or a much better range than what is in their tech trees right now. And this means that they'll be better at combating the CAS, which is coming down. And there has been a problem with CAS for a long time. BVD has talked about it on several occasions over the last few years, showing that there is an issue and there is a problem. And also, at the same time, there has been quite a lot of discussion about what they can do about it and how are they going to fix it. One of the things, of course, that has been brought up is just to add these systems. So we're going to have to see if this actually does fix the issue now. I don't think it will, and I'll tell you why. So when it comes to a lot of games, FPSs in general is probably a best way of putting this. You have this thing which is called TTK, or time to kill. This is the time it takes a gun to basically, after you squeeze the trigger, how long does it take to down a person, so therefore you can go to another person. Technically, as a player, you want the lowest time to kill, and then it's all based on your reaction speeds, because you could just bang, 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 go like that, right? In War Thunder, you have that, especially at the higher echelons with a lot of autocannons, and also being able to get the gun on targets as quick as possible. But when it comes to the air stuff, it's slightly different, especially at high tier. And I think time to launch or time to target is probably a better way of putting it. When planes actually spawn, when it comes to War Thunder at high tier, so basically the ones which have the crazy, fire and forget munitions, which is the ones which are a problem right now, stuff like the KH-38MT, stuff like the Mavericks at slightly lower BRs, and also stuff like the KH-29Ts at lower BRs too. What ends up happening is people will spawn these aircraft, they will look at the battlefield straight away with their optics, they will fire off a lot of ordnance, and then they will turn and it will be impossible to hit them. Okay, so what you have here is a time to launch which is incredibly tiny for these types of vehicles. With the fire and forget helicopters, which all recently went up in BR2, this is the same thing. These vehicles take an incredibly short time to actually get off their ordnance towards targets, because what people do is, first of all, they target the spawns, because that's usually where AAs are, and also there are guaranteed going to be people there, and then they move down the map. Especially if it's a conquest map, it's very easy to fire ordnance on. This is worse on certain maps than other maps, and yeah, the cycle just continues to be kind of a problem. So when it comes to an AA, how do you kind of stop this? Well, you have to be in a position, you scan using your radar, and then you see the target in the air as it's just spawned, and then you have basically a 2-second window to be able to engage it before it starts maneuvering after it's already fired off all of its ordnance. So if you have that window and you're able to engage it and you're able to fire your missile, then you're able to maybe kill the target. But by the time your missile gets to the target, right, so time to target, it has already fired off all of its munitions if the player knows what they're doing, and they've already turned and they've already moved away. So the actual AA isn't able to do what it needs to do because you cannot actually set up in a position where you can counter the plane before it gets off its ordnance. You can destroy the plane, but the issue is the ordnance that's coming in. And Gaijin have added in a few of the features when it comes to the game where you can intercept ordnance, and as a person who's been trying to do this for a long time, doesn't work very well. So it's one of those things that's very hit and miss. I've had stuff like Mavericks where I've just fired all of the Tunguska ammo at it and it just hasn't hit it at all. So yeah, that's always fun. Or Cage 29T's coming in, doing the same thing. Not very fun. But basically, you have an imbalance here, right? Where if somebody can get off all their ordnance, turn, maneuver before the enemy missile is even near the target, then there's not really a ton you can do. And looking at these new SBAAs or SAM systems, this doesn't actually get fixed. This is still a problem, and it's because of the fact that you just can't engage these things quick enough. So all you can hope for is that the aircraft doesn't see targets quick enough, and therefore, you know, you don't get bonked by something, which, I mean, with these thermopods, with the crazy optics that they have nowadays, that's obviously not going to happen. The other part is the AAs themselves are really, really expensive to research. And this is something that I've talked about quite a lot and has been a problem with a lot of tech trees. And I really hope that they actually solve this. I get that they want the grind to kind of be equal across the board with a lot of stuff, but the fact that something like a Leopard 2A7V is the same research cost as a Florak Rad is completely ridiculous. And also the actual modification costs as well are the same because of the fact that it's much harder to spade AAs than it is much harder to spade MBTs because you don't get as much score from the matches and you're not guaranteed to be able to get stuff from the matches either. So I would prefer if they actually started making it at high tiers. So SBAAs were cheaper, so it incentivizes people to actually research them instead of just going for the MBTs or instead of just going for the light tanks. Because when it comes to SAMs, it definitely feels like there are less of them about compared to all of the other kind of MBT areas. And for example, a area like the Soviets, right? You have 5 lines to go down in rank 7, and then you have 3 lines to go down in rank 8. Are you going to get the T90M or the T80 BVM before you get the Panzer? Of course you are. Because if you don't, then you're not going to have a competent MBT to run with the Panzer. And the first spawner's always got to be either an MBT or a light tank for your lineup. Same with like America with the M1A2s and the ADATs. A lot of people have talked about the idea of putting in premium SBAAs to try and solve this issue. I don't think it really solves the issue. It just means that people don't have to grind through the tech trees. So if the issue is people can't grind through the tech trees, then I would personally want them to reduce the grind. So instead of just adding in premiums, going, okay, problem solved, there you go. Because it doesn't solve the problem. Like, even if they would just copy-paste vehicles from the ones that are in the tech trees, that would be better than putting in unique ones. But at the same time, it's not solving the issue. It's basically just saying you can pay to pass the issue, which is really not something I personally think should be promoted. So yeah, I think reducing the grind will definitely help these things, but the major problem is they need to change how the targeting works for planes. They need to change how planes acquire targets and how planes are able to get off all their ordnance before SBAs can even get anywhere close to them, even if they have the range to be able to hit them. That's the only thing. Because what we're doing right now is with these new SAM systems coming in, it's cool to see them, it's really interesting, but at the same time, you know what's going to happen. They're now going to add the next stage of weaponry, and then we're going to need the other, like SAMs, to try and defend them. And all the nations that don't have that weaponry, or all the nations that haven't got that researched out, or any vehicles that are lower BR than that weaponry that you don't have in your lineups, are just going to get annihilated, which is how this stuff works every time. So I'm hoping after a decade of making this game, they will finally realize that it might be worth trying to change some other factors instead of just balancing by adding more overpowered stuff, because it just doesn't work. As always, I hope you have a wonderful day. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you next time. I'd just like to thank GMG Smiley, CD Beans, Chieftain Mike, EMN3 Galaxy, Tulio Pontecorvo, Brendan Quinn, Carrion Crow, Gus Irenicus, Pyman, Wartinder, Teddy, Daniel Stanton, Martinez, B. Young, Ozzy Panzer, Alan Hacker, Liam Shear, Opium Prime, Lafouche, Sem, Aslan, Uncle Bean, and Derek R. for supporting the channel.